Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of the Auburn Football Recruiting Show. I am Keith Niebuhr with Auburn Undercover and 24/7 Sports, and I've covered Auburn football recruiting for 8.5 years. And we decided to put together a YouTube show that we're going to try to do once or twice a week, 12 to 15 minutes, a lot of quick hitters. The goal here to inform the Auburn fan on Auburn recruiting, but also to have fun. We're going to have some fun. We spared no expense to make this one of the best and most technologically advanced shows anywhere. In fact, we have correspondents scattered throughout the country who are going to check in from time to time to give you reports about Auburn football recruiting. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Here's a quick look at where things stand as of Tuesday, February 23rd. With two recent additions, the Auburn 2021 recruiting class now sits at number 20 in the national rankings for 24/7 Sports. Now, that's good for 8th best in the SEC. And while things don't probably knock your socks off if you're an Auburn fan, here are a few things to consider, some reasons for optimism, if you will. Gus Malzahn, former coach, remember him? Fired December 13th. That was just 3 days before the early signing period began in December. Okay, 3 days before. During the early signing period, Auburn came out with only 12 signees. Now, one of those, tight end transfer Grant Calcaterra of Oklahoma, has since landed somewhere else. So that left you with 11 signees. That's less than one half of the class. Okay, so there was a lot of work still to be done. Brian Harsin, Auburn's new football coach, wasn't hired until just a few days before Christmas. Now, at that point, most of the top 2021s already had either signed, were committed elsewhere, or were leaning elsewhere. It took Brian Harsin a few weeks to put together his staff. So when we get to February 1st, January, the later parts of January, Auburn's recruiting class was ranked only 48th in the country. Again, it's up to number 20 now. It was 48. That was dire. This isn't dire. Now, a few things to consider also. There are 9 new signees. Some of the notables, 9 new signees since Brian Harsin took over as head coach. The notables include 4-star defensive end Dylan Brooks, 4-star wide receiver Tavares Dawson out of Florida, and transfers Iku Leota of Northwestern and Dreshun Miller of West Virginia. Now, also consider this. While the number 20 class ranking still isn't what you want, transfers don't count. So in addition to the guys that are committed and signed, you have these, or part of that group, you have these 2 transfers that don't count in the rankings. And that's significant because they're possible starters, guys that should be impact players in year one. Iku Leota as an edge rusher and Dreshun Miller as a cornerback. So now the big question among Auburn fans is this: how many more can the Tigers take in the 2021 class, which, obviously National Signing Day Part 2 was February 3rd. How many spots are left? We've confirmed there are 3 spots remaining. Now, where will these spots go? At least 2, we think, will probably go toward offensive linemen. Now, people always ask us, could this happen soon? But right now, there really isn't an incredible sense of urgency because the spring semester is, we're deep into it. So you could pick somebody up now, but they wouldn't be able to practice this spring. So you can take your time. You can be selective. So likely, and unless things are always subject to change, there might not be any movement with the remaining spots until after spring practice. Now, don't panic, because in recent years, that is actually the time period when Auburn has found many of its transfers, including a few notable offensive linemen. Jack Driscoll, who started a couple years at right tackle, Casey Dunn, who started at center. So don't panic just yet. So that's where things stand with the 2021 class, number 20 ranking in the country. 3 spots remaining. That's what you need to know. The latest addition, Dylan Brooks, number 76 recruit in the country, former Tennessee signee who got out of his national letter of intent with the Volunteers and committed on Saturday. We should point out his paperwork to Auburn did come in today. You can only sign a national letter of intent once, so he signed scholarship papers instead. Dreshun Miller, same thing. Done, sealed, it's over with. 3 spots remaining. I do 4, I mean 3. I couldn't get that finger over. 3 spots remaining. Now, as far as the 2022 class for Auburn goes, and that's the cycle that's already started, Auburn has 3 commitments right now. The most recent coming February 1st from quarterback Holden Garner of Savannah, Georgia, Benedictine School. We don't expect that number to hold at 3 for very long. A couple other things you should know. Holden Garner has played very well during the offseason. He's caught some eyes at people at 7-on-7 camps. It's very possible that he could get his 4th star very soon. Also, we want to point out Auburn is really attacking the local schools, and we think that could lead to something in the very near future. That'll do it for this week's introduction. Now it's on to our next segment. Who could be next to commit? Take it away. The number one question I'm probably asked as a recruiting reporter covering Auburn is who could be next to commit. Doesn't matter what time of month it is. It's always who's next, who's next. People never really rest on their laurels, and neither do the coaches. So you get excited when one kid commits and immediately your mind goes on to who's next. Well, who is next? Who could be next? I've got one name that we're really tracking right now. Now, Auburn in the 2022 class is off to a pretty solid start. Again, like I said a minute ago, 3 commitments, number 23 class ranking, a lot of work to be done. It's early. We're talking about late February here. But on February 18th, Auburn offered a local kid, Powell Gordon, linebacker, standout linebacker at Auburn High. Now, Auburn High went 11-2 last year, played for the state championship, I believe, in Class 7A. Nearly won it, probably should have won it. And he had an outstanding game against Thompson High School from over in Alabaster as an edge rusher. But Powell Gordon listed at 6'3", 215 pounds. Again, Auburn offered on February 18th. Let's look at his stats from last year. 88 total tackles, 14 sacks, pretty solid as an edge rusher, and 30 tackles for loss. So this was a guy that was in the backfield a lot, was disruptive a lot. And also, he's quick, he's strong, he's quick twitch, but he wouldn't be an edge rusher at Auburn. He told us that, hey, Auburn and inside linebackers coach Jeff Schmedding and defensive coordinator Derek Mason, head coach Brian Harsin have told me, this is what he said to us. They've said, hey, you're going to be an inside linebacker if you pick Auburn. We think he's somebody to watch. Grew up an Auburn fan, born in Prattville, Alabama, moved to Auburn about 7 years ago. Again, standout at Auburn High. Currently not ranked. He's kind of just starting to get a lot of exposure, just went into double-digit offers. Within 30 minutes of Auburn offering on the 18th, Vanderbilt offered. High academic guy, high IQ guy, both on and off the field. He would be an early enrollee. Auburn is the unquestioned team to beat. So who could be next to commit? I think Powell Gordon of Auburn High is certainly somebody to watch. Again, currently unranked right now by 24/7 Sports. It's early in the cycle with the pandemic last year. Our rankings team and other reporters such as myself, we're not able to get on the road that much. So there's less video, there's less, one-on-one or in-person eyeballing that's been done. So maybe we're a little bit behind on the rankings, but he will be ranked at some point, probably fairly soon. Very solid player. My contacts up at Vanderbilt say that they love the guy, and you say, okay, well, that's Vanderbilt. But he's got some other schools sniffing around too. Really, really solid player. We should point out he squats 500 pounds. He put it on Twitter just, I guess, on Monday, and it was pretty impressive. So Powell Gordon, somebody to watch. He's the focus of this week's Who Could Be Next to Commit. Next up, we go out in the field. We've got a correspondent down in the Sunshine State. As you know, Auburn recruits Florida heavily each and every year. It's part of the main Auburn footprint. So right now we go to Florida, man, down in sunny FLA. What's going on, everybody? Florida man checking in for the Auburn football recruiting show. I'm down in the Sunshine State, and each week we're going to give you an update on all things Auburn recruiting down in this neck of the woods. It's an important area. It's a big part of the Auburn recruiting footprint, the state of Florida. In 2019, Auburn signed 4 guys from Florida. 2020, it was 3. This past year, 2021, 4 more signees. That was tied with Alabama for the most signees of any state in the Auburn recruiting class. So it's big for Auburn. You go back to the 90s and all those studs down in Fort Lauderdale, James Bostic, Frank Sanders, and you just go year after year after year, and Auburn always seems to do well down here. So I am Florida man, the Auburn football recruiting show, Sunshine State correspondent. Again, Keith's right. They've spared no expense. I'm living in a little cabana just in the other side of the beach here, and I'm going to be traveling the state of Florida, working the phones to get you the latest in Auburn football recruiting. Now, 2 guys to watch in the 2022 cycle. I'll tell you right now, one of them is Earl Little. He's a 4-star cornerback from Plantation American Heritage. Remember I said Bostic and Sanders? Same county, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Number 12 cornerback in the country. Remember now, Junior Rosegreen, former Auburn defensive back. He lives down in this neck of the woods. He trains players. They all know him. What we can tell you is that right now LSU and Miami are the crystal ball favorites for 24/7 Sports. But Zach Etheridge, Auburn's young and dynamic secondary coach, former player on the 2010 national championship team. He is working this recruitment hard, trying to get Auburn in the mix. Will he visit? We don't know yet. If he visits Auburn, once visits are back on, maybe the Tigers will have a shot. But remember the name Earl Little. He certainly is somebody that Auburn is recruiting hard down here. Now, one more. Demario Tolan up in the Orlando area, Kissimmee, Florida, Tahopa-Kalaga High. It's a new high school, very hard to pronounce. 6'3", 205-pound linebacker. Auburn recently offered. He is unranked right now, guys, but we're hearing that he very well could be a 4-star sometime in the future, maybe even the near future. Recent offers, not only just Auburn, Georgia and Oregon. This guy is the real deal. Now, what are Auburn's chances? Again, another one of these too soon to know deals, but he has visited Auburn before as a part of a campus tour, loved it. He says he wants to go back. So again, NCAA dead period is extended through May 31st. If and when that ends this recruiting cycle, look for Demario Tolan to try to make his way up to Auburn. So 2 guys to watch: Demario Tolan, linebacker out of Kissimmee, Florida; Earl Little, cornerback out of the Fort Lauderdale, Broward County area. This is Florida, man. I am out. And we are back. Thanks, Florida, man. You hit a home run, and I'm not surprised, quite frankly. You're incredibly talented and obviously probably the best-looking guy in the business. We're going to wrap up episode 1 of the Auburn Football Recruiting Show with a quick Q&A. 5 questions. Boom, let's go. First one, do I think it's reasonable to expect a top 10 class in 2022 for Brian Harsin and the Auburn Tigers? And also, do I think Auburn will land more top 100 guys under Harsin? I think top 10 in year 1 is going to be tough. I mean, FSU just went through its first full cycle with Mike Norvell and finished outside of the top 20. It's not easy to do. Combine the fact we're still in the middle of a pandemic situation here. The NCAA dead period won't end until May 31st at the earliest. That means no on-campus visits. That means Auburn coaches can't get on the road. They're doing all their communication via FaceTime, phone calls, direct message on Twitter, Zoom calls. That presents quite a challenge. But the key is to just find as many good players as possible to fit in your system and can play high-quality football in the SEC West. Top 10 is going to be hard, though. And the second part, do I think Auburn will now land more top 100 guys? Listen, recruiting was not a problem overall for Gus Malzahn's Auburn program when he was the head coach. He only finished outside of the top 10 twice. We don't count this last season. The previous 8 seasons, he was outside of the top 10 twice. So, that was never an issue. Again, it's about finding guys that not only are high-level guys, but that fit your system, fit your culture, and all of the above. But again, that is going to be hard to top, and also a top 10 class in year 1. I would have not such lofty expectations right away. It's going to take time. These guys have only been here for 15 minutes, somebody told me. That's about right. Harsin hired in late December. Rest of the staff completed by mid-January. They're just now getting to know kids. But again, so far, the results have been pretty good. Let's see if they can take it to the next level. Next up, with the transfer portal now being so important, is 24/7 going to start including transfers into the recruiting rankings? Well, first of all, I can say we've started ranking the transfers. In fact, Drayshoon Miller, who just committed to Auburn as a West Virginia defensive back transfer, he's the number 34 transfer in the country for 24/7 Sports. So we put out a top 50. We're going to have another 50 or so guys as well. We're getting there. We're not there yet, but I think with the amount of transfers that are now it gets so much attention. It's so important for teams. Some teams are really building off the portal. I think it's probably headed in that direction, maybe next year, maybe by next recruiting cycle. Next up, again, we don't just take football questions. We take pop culture, movies, anything. So the question is it's a quick question. I don't know how to say it. Rambo, Red Dawn, or Top Gun? Well, first of all, I don't even think Top Gun personally. It's never been a favorite movie of mine. I just think the plot's terrible. The acting's okay. You kill your partner in a training exercise, or he dies because of you, but you're still able to fly. Come on, give me a break. Red Dawn. Look, as a kid, you were terrified. Is this a possibility? Could the Russians come in and take over? And then we find out that they didn't have money for toilet paper or even enough toilet paper. It was never a real threat. So I found that to be ridiculous. The better war movie of that era is War Games, quite frankly, with Matthew Broderick. So that leads us to Rambo. Unbelievable movie. The first Rambo is by far the best of the whole series of 50 or however many they made. John Rambo, He's been out of Vietnam a few years. He's traveling the country to go see his old buddies. Some of them have died. He gets hassled by a local sheriff, but he's a trained killer and he can't escape that. It's kind of applicable to football in some respects. They said some of the guys, that aggression on the field, they can't get that out of their system when they're not on the field. But Rambo, great movie, fantastic movie, and just a fun to watch movie as well. So that's clearly, I'm going to catch a lot of blowback, I know, but I'm just not a Top Gun guy. I mean, yeah, the aerial scenes are fun to watch, but I mean, yeah, whatever. All right, next up, we got two more. In the 2022 class, who are some offensive linemen to watch? What are Auburn's chances? Look, this is a big area for Auburn. There's no question about it. The offensive line recruiting under Gus Malzahn was not where it needed to be. Everybody knows that, and I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that too. So here's some guys to watch. Eston Harris of Beauregard High School, just south of Auburn. I think Auburn's got a very good chance to land him. Antavius Woody of Lafette High. Remember Boobie Whitlow, the old running back at Auburn? That's his high school. Auburn very much in the mix for him. I should point out Eston Harris, a tackle. Antavius Tay Woody. He says Auburn's recruiting him at tackle. At last check, he was listed at 6'3", so maybe he's more of an inside guy. That's where I tend to think that he would end up. Quayshawn Sapp, a guard tackle from Lee County, Georgia. I think Auburn's in the mix with him. I'll give you another one. Riley Quick up at Hewitt-Trussville, just northeast of Birmingham. A 4-star tackle, a very good player. Also a pitcher, like Butch Thompson in the Auburn baseball program. I think Auburn is very much in it with him. They've offered all four of these guys. Now, with Riley Quick, his brother plays at Bama, Pierce Quick, backup offensive lineman there. Auburn thinks that he wants to go somewhere different than his brother. We'll see. But Auburn very much in the mix with him. And that's four guys. A fifth guy to watch who likely will be playing for Auburn High this fall, Drew Bobo. If that name sounds familiar, it should. It's offensive coordinator Mike Bobo's son, 6'5", 6'6", offensive tackle, playing in South Carolina right now, or has played in South Carolina where his dad was coaching. He'll be moving to Auburn in the near future. Auburn has not offered him yet, but Will Friend knows all about him and is actively recruiting him. So that is somebody to watch. So that's five guys. I think Auburn's probably going to sign 2, maybe even 3 tackles in the next class. Let's go to the fifth question, and then we will get out of here. Lastly, FSU has offered quarterback Thomas Castellanos. He is of Ware County, Georgia, down in Waycross, a neat little town down there, just outside of the Okefenokee Swamp. And now Thomas Castellanos, the question is Auburn recruiting him, and where do things stand? Well, first of all, we should point out, even though he's a quarterback and a very good one, FSU has offered him as an athlete. Now, I reached out to him a couple of days ago, and he said he's not heard from Auburn yet. However, Mike Bobo just started following him on Twitter. So something to keep an eye on, a name to remember. Put it away in your back pocket, as cousin Rusty likes to say, over at our sister site with the University of Georgia. And Thomas Castellanos, very good player from Southeast Georgia. And guys, that'll do it. The first episode of the Auburn Recruiting Show is in the books. Got to thank Florida, man. The guy knocked it out of the park, and I think you're going to see a lot more from him. Reginald Von Niebuhr, my wealthy cousin who travels the country, will be providing recruiting reports as well in the near future. Guys, that'll do it. We appreciate you stopping by. Everybody take care. Make sure you go to auburnundercover.com and 247sports.com. Check us out.